Over the past couple of years, I have been telling you that everybody is going to come into the electric car world. And over the past year, you and I have experienced everything from Porsche to Volkswagen, even something attractive from Nissan. It's changed the electric car world. It's no longer enough to be just an electric car. You gotta bring something else to the table. Today is kinda like a reference of that something else you bring to the table, and it's coming from a very unlikely source. Okay, so there is so much going on here. You and I need to break this down to the absolute root level in order to better understand what Ioniq is going to mean moving forward, because it's no longer going to be a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and a sort of okay electric. Rather, it's going to turn into, at least in the short term, 3 fully electric vehicles. The first one you see here today, that's the 5. Then that's going to be followed by a sports sedan. I believe that's going to be called a 7. And then that's going to be followed by, surprise of surprises, a 3-row crossover. Think something the size of a Palisade, and that would give you a very good idea. Whichever one it is, they're going to be based on the exact same architecture that underpins this vehicle. Hyundai is calling it a global architecture, and the idea is to put the wheels as far out to the corners as possible, not just to package more people and more dogs, but to package batteries in a more efficient way. In talking to one of the Hyundai engineers, the idea is to package 10% more battery in the same space that they would package batteries today. Now, before you and I get too far ahead of ourselves, what's the propulsion system? And here, this is really the only instance where this vehicle is very similar to all of the other EVs you and I have recently experienced, and that would mean 2 different propulsion options. There's going to be a 2-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive. Now, in the case of the 2-wheel drive, thankfully that is rear-wheel drive, 225 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque. The all-wheel drive, in other words, a dual motor, that's going to be 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. Now, they only gave me performance figures, of course, on the all-wheel drive, and that one they're saying 0 to 60 is going to be less than 5 seconds. Now, VMAX, whether it's 2-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, is going to be limited to 115 miles an hour. However, they did bring up something very interesting here, and they talked about towing with an EV, so you kind of see where they're going with this thing. And they said it would tow 1,500 pounds. Okay, so enough in the propulsion system. What about the go juice and moving this thing forward? That's where things begin to take a very interesting turn. The basic building block is the battery, 77.4 kilowatt hour. Then there's the standard onboard charger. Here it's 10.9 kilowatts. Now, as a basis of comparison, most EVs on offer today from regular OEMs, 6.9 kilowatts. So this is quite a big step forward. However, that's not the biggest step forward. The architecture, meaning the charging architecture contained within the vehicle, can support 400 to 800 volt charging. In other words, that is the same architecture that is in a Porsche Taycan. Now, why is that important other than saying I've got the same architecture in a Porsche Taycan? It means significantly faster charge times. Now, that's all fine and good, but it's high time for us to focus on some real-world examples. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, I were to magically spring this pre-production prototype out of that photo psych, bring it back to my hangar, and charge it on my level 2 charger. There would take probably 6 to 7 hours for a full charge. But alternatively, if I were to take it to a 350 kilowatt charger, granted, not many of them around, generally in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, cities like that, it would take to go from 10% to 80%, this is according to Hyundai, 18 minutes. Now, why is that important, aside from what Hyundai has to say? Because the only other car that can charge that fast costs more than $100,000. Now, granted, I don't have pricing on this thing, but I have been told it's going to be competing with some of the other cars we already looked at, like the Aria, like the Volkswagen ID4. Those are not $100,000. Those are what, $35,000 to say $60,000? And you're going to have that kind of speed in replenishing electricity. Now, that's all fine and good again, but let's get into range. This is where we get into the two-wheel drive and all-wheel drive dilemma. In the two-wheel drive, that's where the highest range is, obviously because of weight. They're saying 300 miles of range, which in reality is kind of the bogey you got to get to. However, the car that's like the middle range model all-wheel drive, 269 miles. However, the car we're looking at today, the one that has absolutely every option, very fancy, 245 miles of range. Now, huge advice there. All of those numbers I've given you are manufacturer's estimates. The vehicle you and I are looking at today has not been tested by the US EPA, or I don't think even by the European cycle. So we'll have to circle back to this once we get official government numbers on range. Over the past 12 years, you and I have spent a disproportionate amount of time in every electric car episode talking about how long it takes to get energy into the vehicle. This has a bit of a different party trick in that one can extract energy from the vehicle, but it doesn't necessarily need to be spent on the electric motors. It starts with this, which kind of looks like a charger, at least from one end here, but it doesn't have the cable connected to the power source. You see, it plugs into here, which is the charging port, does the whole magic door thing, and then this turns into, at least in the US, a 110 power outlet. I'm guessing in Europe it'd be 220, and you could plug in, I don't know, camping gear, you can plug in televisions. I actually tested this, and I'm not making this up at all. My cameraman Jim can confirm this. The episode you guys just watched, the previous episode, which was the Nissan Pathfinder tech review we shot up in Montana, I literally took my Macintosh, this is mine, this is not Hyundai's here, and I found my power brick, and I plugged it into this, I don't even know what they call this, vehicle to lead charger, I think that's what they call it. And I uploaded my episode that you watched on Saturday being charged by a Hyundai. So don't tell Hyundai that they uploaded a Nissan episode using their energy, but they did say I should get creative in how I could use this little idea to demonstrate how you can share energy with, in this case, computers, and there is a wonderful Porsche, or you could even share this energy with other people's electric cars. Now, granted, it would be level 1, so it'd be slow, but the concept is if your buddy is low on charge, you can take a little bit of your charge, scrub it off, and give it to him or her. Okay, so enough of the propulsion system and the architecture. Let's circle back to the point of this episode. You gotta bring more to the table than just an electric car. And I would argue one of the two big points here is the interior. Yeah, it's partly the design, and here you can clearly tell it is a very modern, I'd say almost European-inspired design. If I'm taking a guess here, it was probably one of Sang Yep's European design studios that came up with this concept of the interior. But arguably, it's the color and trim and the tactile feel of the interior that stands out here. This, no exaggeration, feels like an Audi on the inside. And it's not just everything you touch, it's what you see. Like, for example, the headliner looks like it has been lifted directly from an Audi like A8, not an A4. Even some of the details, like the sunshade, but that's not the only detail that's been pilfered from Genesis. Some of the switchgear looks like it's been lifted from a Genesis, but in reality that was the reference point, and they used it as like the root level, and they reasoned up from there and applied it to an electric vehicle. Like, for example, the actual shifter, meaning put the car in drive and move it forward, it's behind the steering wheel and below it, as opposed to being high like in a Prius, and it looks like something that comes out of a Porsche. It's very unique. Then another detail they've changed is given more space. Now, it's how you use the space that's different. Like, for example, there is a console here, and like that Nissan Ariya, we can move the console forward and backward, and then bring this armrest up and down. And then one of the details that I love, as a guy who grew up in a GM family, you look at this car, and there's only one badge that says Hyundai, kind of like the Oldsmobile Aurora. And one of the things that stands out the most about that detail, the steering wheel doesn't have the OEM's logo on it. When was the last time you saw a car that had a factory steering wheel that didn't have the brand on it? And then they brought in this whole concept of, well, people who buy electric cars, they want it to be more recyclable. Me, I don't really buy into that point. I kind of like leather interiors. This is a faux leather interior, but more importantly, remember back in the day when we first drove the Nissan Leaf, and the interior of that vehicle, that is made of recycled water bottles. Same kind of deal here, but again, the tactile feel, much better than a Nissan Leaf. Now that's all fine and good, but one of the reasons why all these details work is the size of the vehicle, specifically the interior. Notice the way I am sitting here, I can actually cross my legs across the width of the vehicle. That enables one unique party trick here while you're charging the vehicle. Have any of you flown in business class, like on Lufthansa or some of the European airlines, where they have the flat bed seats? There is a flat bed seat, but no, it's not in the back like in a Lexus or a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. It's the driver's seat, and for the avoidance of doubt, it is not meant for while you are driving. This is level 2 autonomy. This is not a self-driving car. The concept is when you charge the vehicle, you're going to be down for at least, 20 minutes or more. Maybe you can take a cat nap. The seat will go almost flat, and there is an ottoman so you can take a nap. But that's not the only party trick. And there is a very specific reason for that. You see, there is a visual trick going on here, almost like design hocus pocus. When you see this thing in pictures, it screams hot hatch. It seems like a small vehicle. To me, it's kind of like mid-70s original Golf, like Giugiaro design of Golf. You see, that was a complete game changer for that segment of vehicle. And I would argue the same thing is going on here. It's one of the design aspects that stands out. However, it's not the size of a Golf. It's not the size of an Econobox. It's the size of a crossover, but even bigger than that. You see, what's really going on here, its visual cues and proportions look like a car, but in reality, the wheelbase is longer than a Porsche Panamera. Think about the visual trick the Hyundai designers and engineers are pulling in order to make that thing a reality. It's not just the wheelbase, it's the overhangs, it's even details in the car. Like, look at the lights. They have this pixelated theme to them, almost like video games from the 1980s, and that theme is repeated in the exterior of the vehicle, even in the door panels. Doesn't stop there. The head-up display, it floats 4 feet in front of you and is augmented reality. Then there's the roof itself. Yeah, there's a glass roof. Sadly, it doesn't open. But the roof doesn't have any structural points to it. The roof itself, the glass, is a structural point. And this is where we get to where I have to make a bit of an admission. I am completely smitten, not only by the design of this vehicle, but more importantly, the packaging of the design of this vehicle. And you guys know I do not say this very often outside of a 911 GT3 or even the LC500 convertible from a design perspective. This, I would go so far as to saying, is the same breakthrough design that Giugiaro gave Volkswagen back in the 70s. This will give Hyundai today. It is that transformative. Now, a lot of this stuff, we have to put a pin in this discussion until we drive the vehicle, which is not going to be for a while. I believe the US cars we're going to drive in the fall, so we'll have to come back to that question then. Now, of course, that brings us to the wish list, and being Sang Yip and the team absolutely knocked this thing out of the park, not just from a design perspective, but from an ingenuity and packaging perspective. I really don't have any specific points of feedback about the car, but you best believe I have some specific feedback about the money. And here I am going to share the same feedback with Sang Yip and the team as I did with Brother Alfonso and the Aria. Avoid the electric car third rail. No, this has nothing to do with charging the vehicle. It has everything to do with overpricing your vehicle. In this case, anywhere near or over 60,000 US, no one is going to buy your Hyundai, no matter how cool looking it is, no matter how retro 80s looking it is, and no matter how magical the packaging. Over 60 grand or near it, they are going to buy a Tesla. Me, I wouldn't, but then again, I don't have any kids. If I did, maybe I'd have one of these things. Actually, no, I wouldn't. If I had kids, I'd still shoehorn them in a 992 GT3. But that's just me, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I am going to share just one more point of feedback here. The only colors on offer for this thing, they're like silvers and grays. There's no imagination in the colors. Being this is kind of a retro 80s look, how about we go whole hog and make it like a Lancia Delta Integrale rally livery in white? Think how cool that would look. Maybe even jack it up a little bit and put some spoilers on it, make it like an Evo Ioniq. You see where I'm going with this. But still, don't make it too expensive. Till I see you in the next episode, Bish Beta.